Hello and welcome back to the Fulhamish YouTube channel. My name is Don Betts, and on today's video we're going to be looking into Saturday's game at the Etihad against Manchester City. And joining me is Steven from the Esteemed Kompany YouTube channel. How you doing, Steven?
I'm not bad, mate. How are you? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Obviously, Fulham finally got back to winning ways with that big win over Leicester City on Monday night. A very big win for us, and sort of hopefully giving us a platform now. Obviously, next two games have been very tough against you guys and Liverpool, but it's given us a platform now and sort of a tactical blueprint, which I think we can use going forward. But if we're talking about Manchester City, it's been a bit of an indifferent start to the season for you guys compared to what we've been compared to in the last few seasons under Pep Guardiola.
That's fair. Yeah, we haven't had our usual, I guess, joie de vivre. We haven't really been that expansive. We haven't really been that creative. We haven't scored that many goals either. The Burnley game was a bit of an anomaly for us this season. We'd scored, I think, the least amount of goals. We had the worst goal difference we've had since the 06-07 season, which I think was Stuart Pearce, which was terrible. That season, we never scored anything. So yeah, we've been struggling to score goals. Struggling to win games at times. I'm hoping things are about to change. I mean, obviously, you never really know in football. It does feel like we've got a little bit of energy back at the moment, but it hasn't been a good start, and I think that's probably fair to say. And I think most teams, I know, obviously, we're still pretty damn good overall, so I'm not going to complain too much, but I think most teams probably won't fare as much as they used to at the moment, and that's understandable given City's, I guess, I say troubles, but it has been a very lukewarm start to the season so far.
And if you going into the season, obviously, what happened last year, Liverpool completely ran away with it. What sort of were your expectations going into the season? Was it to get close to Liverpool? Was it to win back your title? Is it looking to get that Champions League finally?
Well, to be honest, given City's investment, no one's naive to this. Even most City fans will admit, we've spent a lot of money on our team, and we've got the one, if not the best manager in the world, and some of the best players in the world. So expectations and what you'd hope for. I mean, I always expect that Man City these days should be challenging for the league. We should. That's just it. I mean, I'm not saying we should win it every year because obviously that's unrealistic. But given, what we invest in our club in general, City have to be near the top. And I'm slightly more optimistic than some City fans. I think most knew that this year was going to be difficult given I'm not complaining because obviously life's still pretty good for City fans, but we knew we were in for a little bit of a difficult year potentially, given obviously David Silva leaving, and obviously we hadn't at the start of the season we hadn't really yet replaced Vincent Kompany either, which is obviously a year old problem. Looks like we have now in Diaz, by the way, but at the start we probably weren't sure, and then we had a feeling Fernandinho was going to be a bit injured, and Aguero obviously seems to be on his way out, unfortunately due to injuries. So I think some City fans kind of expected it to be potentially a bit of a maybe a bit of a transition from those players to the next generation. So we expected some kind of, the realistic ones, I say, expected some difficulties. I mean, obviously you never know how far it's going to go. But even having said that, the expectation still, rightfully so, is that we should be challenging for the league. And I think we will do. I think we've obviously had a slow start, but I think it's a weird year, it's a strange year for everyone in every sense of life. And I do think it's going to see freak results. I do think teams will drop points when they wouldn't usually because of, I guess, the schedules and all that kind of stuff. And once again, I'm not complaining, just I think it's a matter of fact. And obviously as well, the lack of fans in stadiums and all these kind of things. So it's a weird time. But having said that, I still expect City should be aiming for the latter stages, if not hopefully winning the Champions League and the latter stages of the title race as well in the Premier League.
Yeah, and I've always looking at City this season. It does seem you are in that transition period between one team to maybe obviously Guardiola signed up a new contract to Guardiola's next team. There is this transitional period. But as you said, if you're looking even at the Premier League, your top of the Premier League this season, there's been about 5 or 6 different teams who've been at the top already this season. No one seems to be completely on form so far this season. And do you think, you spoke about City's goal problems. Do you think that is simply down to the injury to Sergio Aguero and Gabriel Jesus not being 100% fit all season?
I think we would have scored more if they'd played. I mean, we played Ferran Torres, who is a very talented young winger, but he's literally a new lad who's playing our position, who's only 20 years old. Essentially, he's like, here's a new country, here's a new language, here's new teammates, and here's a new role for you. It was always going to be a little bit too much pressure for him to become the solution, And obviously, if Gabriel Jesus played and Aguero played more, we probably would have scored more. It's not the only thing. I mean, we haven't been quite as fluid as you'd associate with Man City. I mean, the one thing, even though City last season were probably a little bit underwhelmed in the league, we still scored a shit ton of goals. We scored loads of goals last season. We just conceded an awful lot. Now, adversely, we seem to have fixed the defence recently, and now just can't really score. But and that's due down to I think there's a few things that City fans probably identified. I mean, obviously the rhythm and the fluidity and the general composure of David Silva. He just is a genius. David Silva is genuinely one of the most creative, probably one of the best midfielders of all time, in the Premier League at very least. And having that kind of like that ebb and flow, obviously with like David Silva controlling the pace and Kevin De Bruyne been essentially, the dagger, the one doing all the aggressive stuff in terms of the final through ball, the shot or the cross. We kind of missed that now. We missed that balance between the two pair of them. And then I guess we've also struggled with a bit of width. We've gone very inverted winger focused. We used to have, you think about the City's best teams between 2017 and 19, it was always Sterling on the right and Sane on the left, just width and pace and speed. And City have kind of gone a little bit more narrow, a little bit slower, a little bit less dynamic. And obviously now we've just lost a David Silva thing. So as much as it's on the strikers, we also have struggled recently just to create a lot of chances. So we've been a bit blunt basically for a few reasons.
Yeah, and obviously, everyone with City this season, your home record has stayed fairly good throughout this season so far. Really, apart from that loss to Leicester, really, I think you're still unbeaten at home in the league. Apart from that game, it's just been the away games where you've been dropping points. Like we saw at Tottenham the other week. Going into this game against Fulham, obviously, it's a game. To be fair, until 13-14, we actually had a fairly good record up at the Etihad. I remember the 3-2 when we came from 2-0 down. We came 2-2 when we came from 2-0 down. I think there was a 2-1 or 2-0 victory as well. Back in the years under Hodgson and Mark Hughes, Martin Yole kind of thing. So going into this game, do you think it's a bit like the Burnley game that it's all about putting your sort of stamp on the game early on?
If I'm being honest, I mean, obviously it's tough for Fulham this season. You've got some decent players, and I kind of do want to see Fulham stay up, and I actually think you might do. But I do think, I think if we're both being realistic, City obviously have more quality than Fulham, and if City do get an early goal, I worry a bit for you guys in the nicest way possible. Of course, I worry a little bit that it could be that we overrun you a little bit because. City are very much a confidence team at the moment, which is you wouldn't associate it with City. You think they'd be confident constantly. But at the moment, we do seem to be quite reactive in terms of individual moments of play. Like if we have a good 10 minutes, we seem to react to that pretty well. If we have a poor 10 minutes, we seem to kind of look a little bit like kind of out of ideas. And I think if Fulham can hold us, if you guys can hold us for a half, I would feel very confident at that point if you guys getting a point or something like that, or maybe even, nicking a goal and getting something from us because we aren't that good at scoring goals at the moment. So that first half is going to be really, really key. I mean, as we're recording this, City just played Porto and we had something like, I think it was 18 shots to their 2. We couldn't score, we had a goal disallowed, but we were all over them, but we're still struggling to score goals. And I mean, I think you'd probably take a point, wouldn't you, at the moment, like the Etihad and stuff like that. So you could easily do that because you've got the quality to do it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what we've seen with Fulham this season is that we have conceded a lot early on in halves of football, but when we haven't done that, we've tended to get results. I think when we beat West Brom, obviously we beat Leicester. Got a point at Sheffield United. Whenever we haven't seemed to concede early, and even the game away at Wolves, we did lose. We were very much in that game. It's just if we don't have these lapses in concentration very early on, we seem to be in games. And I think that is what is different between this Fulham team and the one 2 years ago is, I think we probably conceded about 20 odd goals by this point 2 years ago. And we seem to be in games, when we lost to Wolves, it was by 1 goal. When we lost to Everton, it was by the 1 goal, Palace, 1 goal. And then and when we won games, we've looked good. And as I said, I think when we've been to City, obviously there was the game 2 years ago where I think it was 4-5-0, I can't quite remember. But I think you scored maybe with Leroy Sane very early on in that first half. And then in the cup game, obviously Tim Ream gives away the penalty, gets sent off. Jesus scores a penalty, and we're down 1 goal and down to 10 men. And it's pretty much game over from that point. So I think I agree with you in the fact that if we can keep you at bay in that first half, or even if you do go 1-0 up in that half, but you score in like the 35th minute, and that's the only score at half time, I still think the Fulham team will be fairly confident that they're still in this game and we're able to get something. Because if obviously City haven't been at their scintillating best as we've seen in recent months, but also over the last couple of seasons, we've seen results such as Wolves and Crystal Palace shocking you at the end. What was sort of their game plans to sort of get this kind of result?
I don't think. I'm pretty certain you're not probably quite as electric on the counter attack as those two teams are.
We're not as electric. There is obviously pace on the counter attack, but yeah.
But it's Adama Traore and Vardy. Against Wolves and Leicester, like those two are just ridiculous speed demons. And they cause us lots of problems. I mean, Leicester in particular. 2 good goals, 3 penalties, when they battered us recently. It was weird because largely City had pretty much all the ball. They were just ruthless going the other way. If I'm being honest, though, I feel like that avenue, Spurs did it, but, Son and Harry Kane, they can do it to kind of anyone, really. But, I expect City probably a little... I think we've plugged some of those gaps recently. It does feel, honestly, like Ruben Diaz has made a massive difference because he's an organizer. He's only young, 23 years old for defenders, nothing. But he's come in and he's like we've actually kept 6 clean sheets out of a Leicester 8. So basically when we were conceding soft goals last season, it does feel like we kind of started to plug those gaps. And I do feel confident that City can keep a clean sheet against Fulham, but there is always that threat of the counter-attack. And I guess there's always the threat that any Premier League team can score a goal against any team, genuinely, because obviously there's quality in the Premier League. And I think you guys will be up for it. And I wouldn't be surprised if you can create a chance in the counter-attack or something like that. We're pretty decent at dealing with set pieces now. I'm not saying we're perfect, but we've got a quite a tall, strong team. We never used to, but obviously we've got Rodri's a big lad. Diaz is coming, is good in the air. Even Stones seems to be in form at the moment. Kyle Walker's pretty physical. Mendy's back in the team, and he's a pretty decently sized guy as well. So we've got a little bit of kind of defensive solidity from like in the air and things like that. It's just we can be susceptible occasionally to balls behind the channels, behind Walker maybe, who can switch off occasionally, or definitely behind Mendy, who probably play. He can definitely be a bit of a weakness. But I suspect if anything's going to get through, it'll be just determination. Maybe, Adebayo has a point to prove, and maybe he'll have the game of his career or his season because he's got an awful lot to prove, if anything. So I definitely think there's definitely signs or rooms for encouragement for you guys anyway, potentially.
Yeah, I think going off what you said, it looks like Ademola Lookman should be he has been all season really, our main sort of creative outlet with his sort of direct counter-attacking
approach. He's got the pace as well, hasn't he? Yeah,
so. he's got pace, and he doesn't sort of faff around with it. I guess you can say he does go to directly attack the opposition. You talk about obviously Tosin Adebayo. Since he's come in for us, I think he's been, bar a couple of mistakes, sublime so far. I think he's brought. He's not obviously he's tall, but he's not the most physical kind of centre back. But he's been so comfortable on the ball for us, and he seems to his positional awareness has been exceptional. He's really built a partnership so far with Joachim Andersen, the loanee we got in from Olympique Lyon. What was sort of the reaction to City when they let Tosin Adebayo go? Because obviously he's been at your youth team, he's gone out on loan. Did City ever think he'd get a chance to prove himself, or was it just time for him to sort of make a career for himself?
I was gutted, on even being honest. I think he's a better footballer than Eric Garcia. That's a controversial opinion for Manchester City fans, but I think he's genuinely better. Garcia he's he wants to leave. He's probably going to Barcelona, but I honestly think Adebayo's better, which sounds really mad. But Garcia's small, not strong, not fast. He can pass the ball a little bit, but that's just kind of about it. And Adebayo is tall. Even though he's obviously not like a physical beast in the way that someone Kompany or Van Dijk is, he's obviously a big guy. You're not really going to push him around. Adebayo's got... I've been watching Adebayo for an awful long time because I've spent an awful lot of time watching City's academy sides, and I've been following his progress. I remember first seeing him when he was 16 for our under-18s, and he was always the kind of player who looked like football was too easy for him to an extent, because obviously at that point he was much bigger than anyone else. And he's got that very kind of... relaxed gait, hasn't he, about him? The way he holds himself is very calm. He's very laconic and very composed. And he was always very, very, very good for academy sides. And to be honest, I've always felt that Adebayo will be a little bit of a late bloomer compared to some. And I don't, not really late, but I'm talking as the age he is now, around 23 or something like that, compared to, some people who end up becoming world stars by 20. But I mean, you've only got to look at someone like Van Dijk, for example. I mean, he was playing at Celtic, which is, I think the SPL overall, in terms of the quality, is lower level than the Championship, in my personal opinion. Celtic may be better than some of the Championship sides, but overall, the quality, I'm not saying he's going to reach those levels, but he was playing at a similar level, is the point I'm making, in terms of overall. And look at where it took Van Dijk a few years to get to his very best, and he was like mid to late 20s when he reached there. So I'm not saying he's going to do that, but some people are very quick to rule out Adebayo. Some City fans were too, and I think Man City were as well. I think Adebayo, obviously, he's made a few mistakes for you guys, but you can tell this is a guy who's stepping up massively. He's barely played 2 full seasons of football so far in his entire career, and you can tell he's still growing into his frame a little bit as well. I reckon you'll get. A year ago, if you watched him just before his loan at Blackburn when he was at West Brom, he was even more, he was tall, but he was even lankier. He was really stick thin. I followed his progress quite a lot, and he's got naturally stronger as he's got more confident as well. So he's getting physically a little bit filling out a little bit. I think he's all to his game to get better and better as he gets older. I really want him to succeed. I genuinely really want him to succeed. And I'm 2 million for us giving away him. And you already know personally that he's Premier League quality. How good he can be, I don't know, but he's definitely better than 2 million. You've got an absolute bargain. I mean, you see players like, Dominic Solanke, who's barely played a foot, kicked a ball for Liverpool going for 20 million, to like teams like Bournemouth. And we sold a player who's clearly a competent centre-back and homegrown for 2 million. I was really, really disappointed. I know a lot of City fans are. And I honestly genuinely hope he does really well because I think he's got a lot to prove to City. I think he should have personally been one of our backup defenders. But he wanted to move on. It was his decision to move on. City did offer him a contract. I know people close to him as well, like genuinely very close to him. And he just wanted to go out there and play some football regularly. And I don't really blame him, I guess. And I honestly hope he has a really good season for you guys. And hopefully he keeps you up because he's got, even though he's got a lot to prove still, of course, I think he's got all the attributes to be a very, very, very good centre-back.
Well, yeah, you could see the instant impact he's made in our defence since him and Anderson came in. And, often it takes centre-backs don't instantly click with having a partnership. But him and Anderson seem to have done that. Obviously, he's
intelligent as well, which probably helps.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's impressed me the most of him is his positional awareness. He knows he's nearly always in the right position at the right time. He doesn't need to... he doesn't get caught out of position and then need to run back. Or if Anderson gets caught out of position, he always seems to be in the right area to try and cover him, which I think in the Leicester game, for me personally, he was our man. The match, I know we saw the likes of Lookman, Cav, Bobby Decordova-Reid and Geisa play red, but for me, it was Adarabioyo because the reason Leicester didn't have any chances was because he played so well. But if you're looking at the City team, and obviously a lot has been made actually this season about the fixture schedule. Do you think it's really affected City at all, or do you think it's no different really to any other season playing midweek Champions League fixtures and the league fixtures either side?
Well, I mean, it's I'm not going to moan about it because it's like essentially it's like moaning about being one of the top clubs because the bigger you are, the more games you play. I guess the better you are, the more games you play. But yeah, I mean, we can't deny that. I think it will affect some teams more than others. I guess really, I think it depends very much on the circumstance because. Guardiola is fussy in the training ground from what we can tell. And the one thing that he keeps mentioning is that he's had no time to essentially have 1 to 1 year contact with the players because City don't really have a week off ever. We play 2 games a week every week. And you guys don't, compared to us, for example. I mean, that is obviously it's an advantage for some teams, but at the same time, Liverpool are going through the same, Spurs are going through the same, and all those other teams are. So it's not like we're the only ones who always us and all that kind of thing. But I do think maybe it'll affect someone like Guardiola. We all know he's kind of like, ultra focused, ultra kind of intense with his tactics, and he loves to change things up. That kind of stuff. And once again, I'm not making excuses here. I'm just trying to look at it logically. That kind of stuff takes time on the training ground, doesn't it? And I think Ruben Diaz was saying recently as well, like he's not really had any time to train yet. It's just very much like preparation constantly. So this is a guy who's joined and he hasn't really had time to sit and actually go. Like for example, City played, the weekend. They had one day off. Then they flew to Portugal, and then they played the next day. Then City will get back after a midweek game. They'll have 1 day off resting, 1 day training, then they're playing the next day. So they never really have time to it's all about match preparation as opposed to trying new things or ideas. So I think City are in a situation where we're obviously post Kompany, we're post David Silva, and we've got some new players trying to settle in, and things aren't quite working. And I think what we found is that we probably haven't had the time in the training ground to fix things. It's not as simple as that. There's obviously loads of mitigating factors, and I'm definitely not complaining because we're all in the same situation. But I think depending on how a team plays, it might be that a lack of games could maybe affect them a little bit more. Because I think Liverpool probably. Everyone knows how Liverpool play, and they've got no reason to change how they play at the moment, have they? Because, they're direct, their fullbacks are going to get up the pitch, they've got the team that pretty much doesn't really change. Obviously, got injuries recently, but their style is going to be exactly the same. And I think City are trying to slightly change the style because of players leaving. And as a result, we probably overcomplicating it a little bit in training, or we're not getting time to get the ideas, and it's all a little bit kind of like a kind of shadow of a former self. So, there's an element of that, all the injuries, I guess, around the country are proof that obviously players are a bit tired as well. I do think maybe it would have been better. We'd had a preseason. We didn't play any games. I don't know why we didn't play any preseason games whatsoever. But once again, I kind of don't, I'm not really going to moan about it. I'm just probably trying to look at it from a City fan's perspective and go, well, why is it kind of going wrong? And maybe it is because of that. But I mean, I'm sure you ask any manager in the Premier League and they'll probably say the same. I'm sure I'm sure Scott Parker would probably say the same. They wish they had more time to prep and all that kind of stuff. It could be it. It could be it. I could also just be talking nonsense.
Yeah, and obviously, as you said, it's been indifferent from certain City players this season. But what players on the weekend, or what certain player on the weekend, do you think looks like at the moment in their current form will be causing Fulham the most damage?
I mean, we did rest so many players against Porto. Like we didn't have, he didn't start. The ones I expect to start, we didn't start 3 of our current back 4. Stones has gotten into the team and been really good recently, and Guardiola's been effused by him. So Stones didn't start, Walker didn't start, Mendy didn't start. So all those will come back in with Diaz alongside them. So we've got 3 rested defenders there, which is good. Kevin De Bruyne didn't play any minutes. So obviously Kevin De Bruyne, best midfielder in the world, in my personal opinion. He obviously is the danger man. Morris was really good against Burnley. He's been up and down, Morris, this season, but he's had a rest. Hopefully he'll be. He's the kind of guy I can imagine scoring against you guys. He can be very hot and cold, Morris, but in a game like this, sometimes it can be really, really useful where a team is defending quite a lot and can be a little bit tired and maybe sometimes lacking a little bit of Premier League experience, and he can be pretty good at just kind of getting ahead of his man. He's the left back defended him. Other than that, I'm hoping Foden plays, because he's genuinely one of our best players at the moment. Just really intelligent, really intuitive on the ball. And I guess about the rest. Gundogan's a really intelligent playmaker who will not our best player, but he got a rest. He'll be playing this game, I reckon. Gabriel Jesus, he's actually in good form. He's had a bit of a look in front of goal, but he's in good form at the moment, so he'll play. He also got 70 minutes of a rest midweek, because he only came on for the last 20. So we've got quite a few players to come back in, which for me is the biggest factor, really. I mean, we've got individuals there, of course, but it's the fact that these players have actually had a bit of time off this week for once, instead of playing 2 games in a week, which I think will be the biggest difference. You also know as well that now City's Champions League game next week against Marseille is literally a dead rubber. Like, we're top of the group regardless. So I think the players will know that they can fully give it their best against you guys, knowing that they're going to have the week off regardless, before the United game. So that's the biggest factor for me. Obviously, De Bruyne will probably be the one everyone pick out, but it's more the collective being fit and healthy is the one that's going to be the difference for us, knowing that they've got a week off as well after.
If you're obviously looking at the Fulham team, we spoke about we're going to be playing on counter-attack, and we saw against Leicester that we can hit teams on a counter-attack if there are lapses in defensive concentration. Would you look at, Adam Lutman's one of them, but one interesting player is Andre Frank, Zambo and Gisa, who's come back into our midfield after being on loan at Villarreal last season. And one thing he's been great at is sort of breaking through the line, he's playing in the middle of sort of a number 10 and a defensive midfielder, sort of having that space to roam. And one of his best things has sort of been dribbling past teams' midfields. Would you say that's something that would worry City fans of a player who can maybe break those lines to start the counter-attacks?
Thingy was good against us. Spurs and Bailey was pretty good at doing that. And obviously, as we discussed earlier, the counter-attack is the biggest thing. I'll be honest, I've not watched much of you guys this season. Obviously, it's just the world's a bit weird, as we all know at the moment. So I'm kind of really just focusing on Man City at the moment. I haven't really seen much of him play, but if you see him, I've seen his name mentioned around, and like I said, people seem to be quite excited by him. And if he has got that kind of dynamism to essentially skip past a midfielder or two, I think it's probably fair to say he could be successful, because as good as the players we've got are, Rodri and Gundogan aren't the quickest. They're not the most dynamic. They'll probably play this game. They can be beaten by a little bit of skill, a little bit of pace. And under Bailey was really good against us for Spurs. Very good at just kind of nipping between defenders. That if your guy releases the ball quickly, towards Lookman, people like that, it could be a place where you could target City, because we have been known to concede goals on the counter.
And obviously, you sort of spoke about players you think will play. So if you're going to go for a proper predicted lineup for Saturday's game, what are you going to go with?
Probably be Edison, Mendy at left back, Diaz and Stones, and Kyle Walker. Then I reckon it'll be Rodri and Gundogan with Kevin De Bruyne ahead of them, and then probably Phil Foden on the left with Gabriel Jesus in the middle and Morris on the right.
Yeah, and obviously this is the great thing I think about Man City is you just see there's players that can just sort of come from nowhere to come in and who like Phil Foden, who I think actually personally is. Everyone mentioned Grealish and the impact he's had in the team, but I think Foden's had pretty much a similar impact, and he's still so young.
He's brilliant, man. He's brilliant.
He's going to be the mainstay of the senior team for the next decade, really. But if I'm going to push you for a final question and a prediction for Saturday's game, Stephen, what are you going to go with?
Sorry, I'm going to go for a relatively comfortable City win. I'll say 3-0. Apologies.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, compared to our recent trips at the Etihad, that'll be a lot less than it has been recently.
I could be miles wrong, by the way. You could frustrate us and get a 1-1 draw or something like that, or even a 0-0. But I feel like the game against Burnley was a bit of a turning point for us recently. Yeah. City have started. I mean, it's probably bad timing. If you played us 2 weeks ago, I would have given you a very different scoreline. But we've started creating chances again. Obviously, there's no guarantee we're going to score them, but we have started creating chances, and defensively, we've been pretty solid. So, from my perspective, fingers crossed.
Yeah, no, I think it looks. I believe you guys will win. What I do think will happen is we will give you guys a game, and I don't think it'll just be. I just don't think it'll be a walkover like the Burnley game or like we saw in the Premier League against us 2 years ago. Thanks very much for coming on, Steven. Do you want to let everyone know where they can find you?
Yeah, youtube.com/Esteemed Kompany. It's a terrible pun based on the other thing in Esteemed Kompany, but K for Vincent Kompany. It's Man City content. You can go and follow me over there if you want.
Well, thanks very much for coming on, Steven, and I hope you somewhat enjoyed the game on Saturday.
For you too, I guess.
Yeah. Well, this has been the Fulhamish YouTube channel. This has been our match preview ahead of Saturday's game in the Etihad against Manchester City. I've been Don Betts, and I'll see you guys next time.